Back to the Everyday Magic podcast. I'm your host, Maddie James, and today we're talking about using your time wisely. Now, there are three things that I think you should be relentlessly intentional about, and that is your time, your energy, and attention. And there's just so many things nowadays, thanks to social media and all the things on the internet, that are just always trying to distract you, which just completely leave you depleted by the end of the day. Now, if you are somebody who really likes to make the most of their time and you're actually really good at it, this episode is going to bring you joy. And if you're somebody who is time poor, then this episode is absolutely going to help you. So let me just give you a quick backstory of what our days look like here. Now, many of you guys know I'm a mom of three. Chris and I, we run our business together, and our kids are 10, 6, and 4. They go to school during the week, Monday through Friday. And so it's just the two of us here at home. We come downstairs in our basement where we create content and just do whatever we need to do to run the business. And typically Chris will take the kids to school and usually pick them up as well on Fridays. Because I have a little bit more flexibility in my schedule, I'll go ahead and drop them off to school and pick them up as well. We don't have anybody in house that helps us out, right? We don't have a chef, we don't have a nanny, we don't have a house manager or anything of the like. However, we do have help, right? We're very fortunate. Both sets of our parents live within proximity and they're very hands-on. And so we do have help when it comes to childcare, which is incredibly helpful. During the day, we usually just come downstairs, we do whatever we need to do, and we try our best to have dinner at the table every single night, right? Usually around 6 o'clock. And we just, we'll go to bed and we'll wake up and we'll do it all over again. Obviously there are exceptions. Sometimes we're traveling for work or we're traveling for leisure. Sometimes the kids are home from school for, having days off, whether it's the holidays or just some kind of teacher planning day. But that's really what our day-to-day looks like. And it's a lot. Right? And you're probably like me where you have a lot going on, especially if you have kids, if you're working, if you're married, there's a lot of things that you have to juggle. But I'm here to encourage you that you probably have more time than you think you do. And the fact that you're even listening to this episode means that you are interested in using your time more wisely, and that's a good thing. And my hope and my prayer is that by the end of this episode, you're going to have a lot more solutions to the time problems that you're having during the week. Now, in this episode, you're going to learn 5 things that you need to do to make the most of your time so you know how to plan and schedule your day. Let's talk about how to use your time more wisely. Now, before we get into the episode, I want to let you know that I've created a resource to go along with this episode, and that is the Daily Time Audit Worksheet. Now, in this worksheet, you'll be able to capture what tasks you do during the day and how long it actually takes you to do it. I think one of the biggest gaps that you may be having is that you don't know how long it actually takes you to do something, and so you're putting a lot more on your planner than you can actually handle in real life. And so this time audit will help you to know exactly how much time it's taking you to do something and how much you're actually getting done in the day. Now, to get this resource, head on over to maddiejames.com/013 to get the show notes and the time audit worksheets. That's maddiejames.com/013. Okay, let's get into it. So when it comes to using your time wisely, there are 5 things you need to do. You need to deliberate, you need to decide, you need to designate, you need to devote, and you need to design. So let's break that down a little bit further. So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to deliberate, meaning you've got to actually understand how much time you actually have and how do you use time. So are you prepared? Are you prioritizing? And I know this seems like a no-brainer when I'm asking you these questions. However, these are questions that need answers. So are you actually prepared to do something? Because showing up prepared, ready to execute something in the time you've designated to do it is completely different than trying to do and plan and prepare in real time. All of those things take time. So those are questions you need to know the answers to. Are you prioritizing? Are you prepared? And one thing I want you to remember is that Everything that is a priority is important, but not everything that's important is a priority. And this is something I talk about in the book because when I realized this, it completely freed me. When I first got married, I thought that every single thing was a priority. Everything was important. And I thought that I needed to do it all on my own. And so that's why I was experiencing burnout at such a high level. And it was not even that serious. Nobody told me that I had to do everything. Chris would look at me some days and be like, I'm not really sure why you're doing this. This is not the expectation, but it was just something that I put on myself. And maybe you're experiencing that too. So I'm here to encourage you that not everything that is important is a priority, and you should be focusing on your priorities solely. The other thing you want to ask yourself is if you're using tools, right? This is definitely something you need to deliberate because it's like, what tools are you using? Do you have a planner? Do you have a calendar? Do you use a timer? These are all things that can be incredibly helpful for you, especially depending on your day-to-day workflow, depending on what you do for work, and depending on your personality type. I am absolutely somebody who needs to use a timer because it creates a sense of urgency in me. And that just lets me know that I have a little bit of pressure to get something done. But the whole reason why you even want to use tools is so you can be helped when it comes to managing your time better. So when it comes to deliberating how you use time, be really honest about this and consider where the gaps are and start to fill in those gaps. This is why the time audit worksheets are going to help you so much because you're going to have a clear idea of how long it's actually going to take you to do things, right? I think a lot of times we think 5-minute tasks are really short and easy, and maybe it's actually taking you 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and maybe there's something that you think takes you really long, but you just have a negative or resistant feeling towards it, and it actually takes you 10 minutes, but you've been thinking about the feeling in connotation to the time versus it being the reality of what your time is. So make sure you use the time audit worksheets because that'll actually tell you how you're actually using your time. The next thing you've got to do is you've got to decide your plan. This is really, really important. First and foremost, you need to write your plan down. You need to have a planner. You need to write it down. And it's really important for you to have a weekly plan and a daily plan. And I think one of the biggest issues you're probably having with your plan is you're probably brain dumping a weekly plan on paper or in your planner and making the mistake of thinking that that's your daily plan. You're not going to be able to do everything. You're not designed to be everything to everyone. And deciding what your plan will be will really allow you to start to see that. Now, one thing that has been really, really helpful is understanding the 4 things that need to be decided within my plan. And the 4 things are you need to decide what to delegate, what to automate, what to operate, and what to eliminate. And when you answer these 4 questions, your plan is going to get a lot more clear. So what are some tasks that you repeatedly do that you can automate, with apps or with software? I mean, we live in such an incredible time thanks to AI, thanks to apps. There's so many things that you can automate that you do repeatedly. Like something as simple as an email autoresponder can be used and automated to help you get things done faster. So don't always think that you need to do things in real time or that you need to do things yourself at the computer, especially when it comes to technology. There are so many things that can be automated. Then the other thing you have to be honest about is that you need to delegate some stuff. The thing that's going to free you is unlearning the lie that you have to do everything yourself. And I understand this at such a deep level because it was a lie that I believed for a long time. And I have to keep on reminding myself not to be tricked by that lie anymore. What I want you to know is that you asking for help is probably one of the best things that you can do. It shows actually how capable and how thoughtful you are of understanding that you don't have to do everything, And I think here's the reason why delegation is also really massive. Not only will it free up your time, but I think one of the biggest mistakes you're making with your plan is you're trying to equally give every single task in your plan the same amount of time to achieve balance. And my friend, you don't need balance, you need support. And so once you get that support because you asked for it, you're going to feel a lot better doing all the things that you have going on in your life, right? Not only will you be a lot more, you'll be more able to be pleasant and present. And I think that's a plus. You should be enjoying your life, like, yes, you have work to do in your life, be it personal or professional, but you should still be able to enjoy your life while you're doing it. So ask for support. Like I said, Chris and I have our parents were really fortunate, and maybe your situation looks a little bit different, but don't be afraid to ask for support from any kind of source, right? That's trusted and safe for you and your family. So ask what kind of after school programs are at your kid's school. Ask if somebody can help with pickup or drop off, at your church, or maybe you have a neighbor who also has a kid that's the same age as yours. And maybe you guys can, trade off, pickup and drop off days during the week. But support is really, really important. And this is why you've got to delegate. What do you need to operate and execute yourself? Now, this is something you've got to be explicitly honest with yourself about because it's not everything. I promise you it's not everything. And again, we talked about things like automation, things that you can hire out or, even purchase and have technology handle it for you. But I'll tell you what, delegating things down to like laundry or even asking Chris to tackle dinner during the work week has allowed me so much more freedom, right? And there's certain things that only I can execute, right? This is the Everyday Magic podcast hosted by me. It's just something that Chris can't host. I can't have my kids host it. I can't have anybody else on our team host it. So this is something that you have to understand. Like there are certain things that, yes, only you can execute, but my friend, that is not everything. That is probably 20% of the tasks you have. And this is something to be really honest with yourself about because it's going to free you. And it's also going to allow the people who love you and want to support you, it's going to give them the opportunity to show up for you as well. And then last but not least, there are things that you probably don't need to delegate, you don't need to operate, you don't need to automate, you just simply need to eliminate them. And once you decide that, your plan starts to get a lot more crystal clear and you start to use your time for the things that actually matter. And I can't emphasize this enough. And this is the hill I'm going to die on. Write your plan down, get a planner, write it in the planner, and just like make a weekly plan and then take the weekly plan and break it down into daily little nuggets. That's going to help you so much. And the thing I want you to remember is that the faintest ink is better than the sharpest memory. So write your plan down for the day. Next up, you need to designate your schedule. This, my friend, is a game changer because I'm somebody who's always really liked to write things down. But what would happen is that I would have a plan and things wouldn't get done still, right? Because I would not designate a time for the tasks that were in my plan. So you need to designate your schedule. What time are you going to do certain things? This is really important because until you give a task a time, it's still really kind of just floating out there in the, magical abyss of, this little dream that you have because you haven't attached a time to it. So when you designate your schedule, what you're going to do is say that I'm going to get this done at this time. And this is really important because it allows you to start taking yourself, your time, and your task a lot more seriously. So understanding how many working hours you have in your day will really free you because every single day is going to look different. I think that we have all become really conditioned to this idea that we have 8 hours to do work. And that might not be true for you this Tuesday, right? Maybe because your kid has a field trip or, maybe the plumber's coming over and there's just going to be gaps in your day. Everybody's day is going to look different for the most part day to day. And so understanding that allows you to designate your schedule accordingly. So today you might only have 4 working hours. How are you going to use that time? That's what's going to really free you. And I will say that one of the biggest mistakes you're making with your schedule is that you're making it a priority instead of a tool. And the goal isn't to prioritize the schedule. The goal is to schedule your priorities. This is about making sure that what you prioritize, what is the most important, actually has a time in your day. And the time of day does matter because maybe you're going to have a lot more energy in the morning before, after lunch. maybe you get a little bit low energy, maybe you're going to have a hard conversation in the afternoon. So you want to make sure that you're being mindful of when certain things are going to happen during the day and how much time you have in your day so you can schedule things accordingly. Like one of my favorite rules, and I talk about this in the book, is David, Your Goliath. I always like to do the hardest thing. If I can help it, I like to do the hardest thing before noon. And when I say the hardest thing, I mean the thing that would make you cuss in front of your mom. Do that thing before noon. Just getting it out the way allows the rest of your day to just flow and to feel like a cakewalk. And here's the thing about your schedule. The goal really isn't to schedule every single waking, working minute in your day, but it is a tool for you to get your priorities done and doing it in a way that allows you to do it best. Which brings us to the next thing, which is devote your attention to your workflow. Devote attention to your workflow. Now, devote isn't a word that we use that often, but I really like it because instead of just giving your attention, devote kind of elevates the seriousness of what you're giving your attention to. And what's happening in your day is that you're getting distracted. You're getting distracted. And so when you can get devoted to your workflow, it really does allow yourself to set boundaries so you don't allow distractions to throw you off your schedule and your plan for the day. Now, your workflow is essentially how you do something, right? It's like those processes or those routines, right? How do you record a podcast, right? How do you prepare for dinner? How do you prepare breakfast? It's how you do everything. It's like it allows you to just get in the flow, get in the motion. And this is why designating time to get into the flow is so important. But when you're getting into the workflow, it's important to be devoted with your undivided attention to execute something well. So this isn't just about how you're doing something. This is also about how much time you're giving yourself to do something well. And that's why those time audit worksheets are going to be so helpful for you. When you understand how much time it takes to execute something at the level you want to execute it at, you become so much better. You become a master at managing your time. And I cannot emphasize how insanely valuable uninterrupted time is. And I get it. So many of us don't have the luxury of having a bunch of uninterrupted time. But if you can identify every single block of uninterrupted time you have on your schedule, you will absolutely become unstoppable. Because what's going to happen is guess what? When you have a block of uninterrupted time, I'm sure you're going to put the most important thing there to do it. And also what you want to also stop doing is multitasking. It is not helping anything. You are not getting more done. You are actually doing something that's probably pretty simple for you to do, slower, and probably at a lower quality level than you want to do because you're busy trying to do 3 things at once instead of actually allowing yourself to do the one thing really well. The goal with time management isn't to do more. The goal is to do less better. And that's what devoting your attention to your workflow will allow you to do. One of my favorite things to do, and I mentioned this earlier, is to use a timer. It allows me to create a sense of urgency. And when I have the timer on, I really put everything on do not disturb. I allow myself to have a nice block of uninterrupted time. And what ends up happening is something that I thought would have taken me an hour ends up taking me a little bit shorter because I was able to give it my undivided attention while executing with a sense of urgency without compromising excellence. And this matters whether you're making a pound cake or it matters if you're writing an email. But it's really about allowing yourself to give something your undivided attention. I believe that anything that you're prioritizing in your life deserves that type of attention. Last but not least, you've got to design your ability to adjust. Design your ability to adjust. One thing I mentioned earlier, and I want to reiterate it here again, is that the goal with managing your time wisely isn't for you to schedule every single waking, working minute to a T. It really isn't. It's about doing what matters most well in your day. Remember, the goal here is doing less better. That's why you're going to automate. That's why you're going to delegate. And that's why you're going to eliminate so you can operate at the things that only you can do in your life and your business at the level that you can do it. So This is really about designing your ability to adjust because things are going to happen, right? Like today is a day where, we had to go pick up our oldest, you know what I mean? Because she wasn't feeling well. So sometimes you're going to have to pick up a kid from school. Sometimes a phone call is going to take longer than you expected, And that's really important for you to acknowledge because you are not designed to be a machine. You are a human being. You are not designed to be everything to everyone and to do all the things. It's really a misuse of yourself. And so the thing that you want to keep in mind is that you are going to have moments where you want to scroll, right? Design some time for scrolling, like, okay, maybe promise yourself, like, if I get this thing done, if I David my Goliath before noon, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes to scroll before lunch or 15 minutes to scroll after lunch, right? Doing that really, one, gives you something to look forward to, but it also allows you to be a human being, right? When you have every single thing perfectly scheduled, what happens is that you start to feel bombarded. You start to feel overwhelmed, right? Because again, you're a human being. That's not realistic for you to navigate. Now, there are going to be some days that are going to be really full and have to be scheduled to a T because there's certain things that need to be done. Maybe you have a deadline. Maybe you're going to be going on vacation for the next week and you need to make sure certain things are done, right? But that should not be the majority of your day-to-day life. That should be special moments, right? Certain occasions based off of certain things that are going on. But remember, design your ability to adjust, right? Having just scheduled flex time allows you, something like flex time could be, I like flex time because you can use 90 minutes to do whatever work that maybe you didn't get done earlier in the week, right? That's what flex time can be. I love scheduling thinking time where I just sit and think. Because I'll tell you what, thinking is the hardest work that most people don't want to do. And simply scheduling thinking time early in your day, or maybe it's something you want to do to be reflective after lunch, really allows you to set yourself up for success instead of having to work down to the bone every single waking minute. And here's what happens when you do that. The reason why you want to design your ability to adjust is because when you do too much, right, and you just are busy for the sake of being busy, what ends up happening is that you end up not even being intentionally productive and more so aimlessly busy. And then when you're aimlessly busy, you're worn out, you put the kids to bed, and then you go out of your way to be distracted to treat yourself, right? And I submit to you is that it's probably better for you to do less better and be intentionally productive than to do 12 things for the sake of being aimlessly busy and saying that you got a lot done. Because I'll tell you this, rewarding yourself at the end of the day with a distraction really isn't a reward. Being consistently distracted is not really me time. It's not actually the self-care you're saying that it actually is, right? Especially when you could go to sleep so you can wake up refreshed and get your day started the time you actually want to get it started. So this is why it's important for you to design a day that allows you to be human, that allows you to operate with workflow, that allows you to have things such as flex time or thinking time, because this is how you manage time wisely. This isn't about managing time to the most. This is about managing your time wisely. So when it comes to using your time wisely, the 5 things you want to do is you want to deliberate how you use time, right? Are you prepared? Are you prioritizing? This is really important. Next, you want to decide your plan. Decide what you're going to automate, what you're going to delegate, operate, and eliminate. Okay? This is really important. And remember, this isn't about you delegating every single task so you have equal balance. You don't need balance, my friend. You need support. Ask for it. This will allow you to decide a plan that allows you to have time to do what matters most to you. Next, you want to designate a schedule. So this isn't just about having tasks that you need to do during the day. This is actually about knowing what time it's going to get done and knowing how much time you have to get it done. That's why those time audit worksheets are going to be so helpful for you. Then you want to devote your attention to your workflow, right? How much time do you have to do something really well? And remember, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So devoting your attention will really be helpful when you have schedules, when you have routines, and when you have processes in place. And last but not least, remember to design your ability to adjust during the day. This isn't about having every single minute to a T scheduled out. This is about creating blocks of time that allow you to operate and make everyday magic. Not because you got everything done, but you got the things that matter to you most done. And that is going to allow you to use your time more wisely. Before we go, do not forget about the daily time audit worksheets. You can get them over at maddiejames.com/013. That's maddiejames.com/013. You can get the show notes there, and you can also get the worksheets over in the And More resource library. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the Everyday Magic podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe because subscribing lets you know whenever there are new episodes. And if you could do me another favor, go ahead and take some time out to rate and review the podcast. This is a huge help. One, I love hearing from you and what you like about the podcast. And when you rate and review the podcast, it helps new listeners discover the podcast. And that's always so appreciated. If you have been craving community, I want to invite you to join the And More community. I really wanted a place where I could talk about Christ, I could talk about work and business, and I could even talk about family and home with people who value those things too. And that's exactly what we do over in the And More community. Now, I go live there Monday through Thursday every single morning, and we have these incredible monthly live virtual events like monthly meal planning and charcuterie club and book club. It's a good time. I'd love for you to join us. Be sure to join And More over at maddiejames.com/community. That's maddiejames.com/community. All right, guys, that does it for this episode. I hope it was helpful, and I hope after listening to this that you are encouraged to use your time more wisely. Remember, every day matters. You might as well make it magic. Love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'll see you next time here on the Everyday Magic Podcast.